and this is why I hope I'm wrong. When people come back and say, man, you were wrong. That is a crappy prediction. Russia will tell him to go to hell first. Politely, but you can go to hell. We're not going to.
And we are live, a little chaotically, as usual. I'm sorry about that. Again. How are you doing, Larry?
I'll put the mirror under my nose, breathe, so you can see I'm alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlike the F-18 Super Hornet that just decided that life was too short.
Yeah, man, jumped off, couldn't take any more, jumped off the deck. Yeah, that, I guess the aircraft carrier was hauling ass, trying to avoid getting hit by a Houthi missile. And the plane didn't have it properly secured, and boom, overboard. $70 million worth. That's like 2 Predator drones.
Well, plus the Predator drones that were shot down.
Oh, they've shot at least the Houthis in the last. So it's 6 weeks since March 15th, and they've shot down 7. So they're doing about 1 a week, a little bit more than 1 a week.
That bill's starting to get expensive.
Yeah, those that costs over $210 million right there.
We have to start discussing what can we buy with $210 million. For sure, some good houses like Zelensky's, but
you could buy at least in some upscale neighborhoods 210 houses.
Upscale neighborhoods.
Yeah, not some shack, not some one-room shack with 1 bathroom. We're talking, 4,000 square feet, 3 or 4 bathrooms, 3 or 4 bedrooms. People would be living large with a pool
next to the Kardashians.
Yeah.
Just for bonus.
Yeah, it's a lot of money that could be used to make people's lives better, but instead we're pissing it away in the Red Sea.
Yeah, I had other things to start, but since we started with the Red Sea, Iran and US talks, Larry. We just had the 3rd round, which seemed that had some progress, but still not some breakthroughs. And they're already talking about the next round. So yeah, we actually living week by week, Saturday by Saturday.
That's right. That's the good news. They've agreed to have another round, fourth time. So that's a month of talk as opposed to going to war. Now, what concerns me is that Trump is drawing down troop presence in Syria. Maybe this is a preventative measure to lower the U.S. footprint in the event that they are going to launch an attack on Iran, and then give one less target for the Iranians to hit. I can't rule that out. But for right now, Iran is willing to make a deal. And they're willing to make a deal that they would give up all enrichment except for the low level in order to get sanctions lifted. Now, will the United States take that deal? They should. Rational thinkers, they should. Trump should. But I would predict, and this is why I hope I'm wrong. When people come back and say, man, you were wrong. That is a crappy prediction. But I think Trump ultimately will walk away from the deal and will insist that Iran do things that Iran's not going to do, such as eliminate all of its missile stock and end all contact with Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis.
How many times does a country leader has to get, whacked and destroyed and persecuted by the United States so they can learn that they cannot trust, getting rid of weapons?
But people, they're not paying attention.
Looks like this time is the charm.
Yeah, well, this time, I keep hearing people say, Iran right now is in a much weaker position. Oh, that's nonsense. Compared to 10 years ago, 10 years ago, Iran was actually pretty isolated. Russia and China both were willing to impose sanctions, Western-led sanctions on Iran. Iran was embroiled in a new war in Yemen that's backed by the United States and the CIA. And they were embroiled in a war in Syria, trying to help Bashar al-Assad fend off radical Sunni Islamists that also were backed by the West. So they were in no great position, and so they were desperate to get the economic sanction relief. So that's one of the motivations that they agreed to JCPOA back then, the Joint Cooperation Program. So what happened, or Joint Cooperation Plan, that's what it is, JCPOA. And, they got into it, and then the sanction relief was slow in coming, and Trump bugged out. I believe it was in 2018. Well, coincidence. What happens in 2018? 2018 is when China and Russia come together with Iran and say, maybe we ought to start cooperating and working together and planning on joint military exercises. And so that first military exercise was held in March of 2019. Jump ahead now, we're 6 years later. Iran has signed a comprehensive security agreement with Russia. It continues to conduct an annual military exercise with both Russia and China. It is a member of BRICS. It's in a much stronger position. And it's launched 2 attacks on Israel in response to Israel attacks. The first was just to show that it could. The second was a demonstration where they actually unveiled hypersonic missiles that defeated Israeli air defense systems. So when you look at the status of Iran today, much stronger position, and yet they're willing to make a deal with the West. They're willing to say, hey, we don't need 20% or 60% enrichment. We'll stay content with 3.6%, but the sanctions have to be lifted. It's a deal that it's a very reasonable deal. We'll see if Donald Trump takes it. Like I said, I predict he won't. I think the man's a fool.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense to me. I'm Brazilian, so of course the things are, my perspective of seeing things are very different from, I don't know, the North American establishment or European establishment. It doesn't make sense to me that the country does not have the right, quote unquote, to produce its own nuclear fuel for its nuclear industry or medical industry. So, I understand the fear of having an atomic bomb. I understand the idea that, yeah, well, perhaps we don't want everybody to have atomic bombs. I understand the thinking. Uh, Nonetheless, at some point, you can either completely roll over the country, or we see what Kim Jong-un did at some point.
Well, once North Korea got nuclear weapons, people basically backed off and left it alone.
Yeah,
And so there's a great incentive for some countries to try to get a nuclear weapon for that very reason. So people will back off and leave them alone.
yeah,
But this is the United States is under Trump right now throwing a temper tantrum. I watched a little bit ago Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, and he made an audaciously stupid statement. China needs our market. Oh, they're going to have to come basically crawling back to us because they need us. Let me suggest that China doesn't need us at all. Will China suffer some economic pain by separating from the United States? Absolutely. But they won't suffer as much pain as we will. this is absolutely, this is just incredibly stupid. But it's, this is what Trump is doing now. I had great hopes that he had learned something from the political pressure, persecution brought on him over the last 7 years. Hasn't learned a damn thing, not a thing. So, he is sowing the seeds of the destruction of his administration, and it'll be his own fault. It could have been different. Could have been radically. All he had, they're marking 100 days. What they should be celebrating right now is that he brought an immediate end to the war in Ukraine because he pulled out all U.S. support, all U.S. military and intelligence personnel, and he cut off the money. But he didn't do that. He's trying to force a ceasefire on Russia, and he'll never be able to. Russia will tell him to go to hell first, politely, but he can go to hell. We're not going to do that.
Like Lavrov did on Face the Nation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, Lavrov is very professional, very polite, but, very firm. Trump could have taken credit for freeing all the hostages in Lebanon, in Gaza, and bringing an end to the Israeli slaughter, the genocide of the Gazans. But instead, he's further enabled Netanyahu's slaughter to go on. The genocide continues. And then with Iran, well, they could have had to deal with Iran before now. But he's held hostage, captive to the Zionist lobby. They are the most pernicious, evil influence in the United States, in my view.
At some point, someone has to put a stop on it, and
Well,
most likely we're gonna see another Kennedy situation on that. So I
well,
understand the man.
it's going to be Israel will put it into itself. They're in the
Yeah,
process of heading towards a civil war, and it's unfortunate that it seems to be the more populist element in Israel are these extremists, Zionists like Ben Gvir and Smotrich, and people like that. They're both, I would note, are convicted terrorists in Israel. But nonetheless, despite being convicted terrorists, they get to be in the government.
and just these days they were in Washington, no, or
Yep.
New York, Washington,
Yeah, yeah. New York.
New York, New
Yeah,
York.
they were hollering at Ben Gvir, a bunch of a number of the Jewish members of that particular area who's walking around and were verbally assaulting him, and understandably so.
Yeah, I saw the video. It's well, at some point, people have to realize that uh, the word can be smart enough to separate the two things, Jews and Zionists,
Right,
to a level until the point they start to get pissed off with everybody
right,
and just stop separating. It should be a good initiative for the Jewish community to start recognizing things are not going well in Israel and they need to be changed. Otherwise, people can start to turn against them.
right.
It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. Um, just to finish about Iran, we had this explosion on the port, and well, two things. Well, first of all, it looks a lot. Iran kind of said that it was malfunction and lack of safety, stuff like that. They wouldn't say for sure, but it really looked a lot like that one in Lebanon some years ago. I don't remember how many years ago was
Well,
that.
that was that was ammonium nitrate fertilizer,
I
and
read somewhere that it was another ammonium nitrate fertilizer that blew up.
no, it wasn't. It was a rocket fuel, and it was improperly handled. So, there are many speculating that this could have been, a terrorist attack or, sabotage, and perhaps it was. I don't, I can't prove it one way or the other. Um, but the other comments coming out from the government and even Russians who went down to investigate suggest it was just improper handling of hazardous material. So, it could be either that, but, that doesn't destroy Iran and it doesn't force regime change, which is what the West is keen on doing.
And it looks like it did not stop the negotiations. So if anyone planned that for boggling the negotiations with the US, didn't work that well as well.
Mhm.
It's a very better deal.